If you've never put air in your tires, it could be super intimidating to do so. Good news is it's pretty simple. And the process that we're gonna go through today can apply whether you're doing huge mountain bike tires or whatever these little things are. It's even gonna be the same for car tires. Now, step one is to identify what kind of valve and pump you need. There's two types of valves on bikes, Presta or Schrader. Presta is what I have on most of my bikes. However, this bike has a Schrader, so do older bikes and car tires. This is the same exact thing as your car. And the reason that's important is because not all pumps are created equal. So depending on if your bike is Presta or Schrader, you're also gonna have to look at your pump because some pumps only do one or the other. This one actually happens to do both. It does Presta and Schrader without you needing to change anything on the nozzle, but this one that I bring on my bike has two different ends. One end is meant for Presta and the other end for Schrader, depending on what you need. And they're usually labeled or have a little diagram somewhere that tells you which end, which nozzle, which type will go with either Presta or Schrader. Now that we've figured out what valve and pump we need to figure out how much air actually goes in the tires. And there's a couple ways to do that. The easiest one is actually just looking on the side of the tire. Every single tire, no matter if it's car, bike, motorcycle, any sort of tire on the side will have a little spot that tells you what the minimum and maximum pressure is for that tire. Think about it this way. The max you should never touch and the minimum you should never really touch. But what I think is get close to that max if you're riding on road that's really smooth and lower if you're doing bumpier stuff. But if you want a good starting point, I actually really like the René Hurst tire pressure calculator. You put in how big your tires are, which is also on the side, how much you and your bike weigh, and then it'll give you two numbers, one for hard if you're riding paved surfaces or soft if you're doing stuff like gravel. And then you can start from there and tweak it. But one important note is if you don't have a way to figure out how much air is actually in your tire, like if you're using a hand pump like this, just think about it this way. On road, you shouldn't be able to easily squeeze it. If you put a lot of pressure, you want to be able to still make sure you indent the tire because you don't want it to explode. But for mountain bike and gravel, you want something that feels like it's a firm orange. So like this, I don't know if you can see it squeezing, but I got to put some pressure to squeeze. It feels like a nice, firm, ripe fruit. Now, step three is to open up the valve. Most valves come with some sort of cap or cover that you're going to need to open up or take off before you do work. This is the same on your car or bikes. And then the Presta valves have an added little feature where you actually need to open them up in order to be able to put air in. The Schrader ones you don't. They just take off the cap and you're good to go. But now we've got our cap off and the Presta valve opened, so let's put some air. And in order to put air in your tire, you need to attach your pump to the valve. And every pump has some way to usually lock onto the valve so that it doesn't just fly off once you start putting air in. In this case, I put it on with the handle down and then I pick this up to lock it in. But in the case of the one that I carry on my bike, you actually screw it in. So once you place it on the valve, you do a little tightening by screwing this in, and then the thing is locked onto the valve. Now we pump it up. So just look at the gauge to get up to that recommended value that you found earlier in step two. And if you go over, it's okay. You can easily let air out. Some pumps, like this one, have a little dump button where you can press and it'll let air out. Or you just detach the pump from the valve. And on a Presta valve, you just press the top. And on a Schrader, put something into that little post that's sticking out of the middle, and that'll let air out. But once you've gotten to your target pressure, all these steps just go in reverse. You're gonna take the pump off of the valve, close the valve however it needs to be closed or capped, and then you get to riding. Now you can follow this exact same process whether you have an electric pump on any of these bike tires, or the opposite. You could use a bicycle pump on car tires to blow them up, and I've done that plenty of times. It's a lot of work. It's like really hard to do, but it is possible. So if you like this video or learned something new, let me know down in the comments below. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hasta la próxima, mi gente. Nos vemos.